Although we tend to think of electric cars as being something completely modern, they were, in fact, some of the earliest types of motorized vehicle. At the beginning of the 20th century, electric cars were actually more popular than cars with an internal combustion engine as they were more comfortable to ride in. However, as cars fueled by petrol increased in importance, electric cars declined. The situation became such that electric vehicles were only used for certain specific purposes, as forklift trucks, ambulances, and urban delivery vehicles. For example, although electricity declined in use in road vehicles, it steadily grew in importance as a means of powering trains. Switzerland, for example, was quick to develop an electrified train system, encouraged in this no doubt by the fact that it had no coal or oil resources of its own. Nowadays there is renewed interest in electricity as a means of powering road vehicles. Why is this case? Well, undoubtedly economic reasons are of considerable importance. The cost of oil has risen so sharply that there is a strong financial imperative to look for an alternative. However, there are also environmental motivations. Emissions from cars blamed in large part for, among other things, the destruction of the ozone layer and the resultant rise in temperatures in the polar regions. A desire not to let things get any worse is also encouraging research into designing effective electric transport. Four years ago, Derek Fitica was stabbed in the back, leaving his spinal cord severed and his body from the chest down paralyzed. Now, after an experimental treatment, Fitica has regained some feeling in his lower body and is learning to walk again. The researchers are looking to use less invasive techniques in the future, because undergoing brain surgery to extract the olfactory tissue isn't anyone's idea of a good time, much less someone who is paralyzed. 4 years ago, Derek Fitica was stabbed in the back, leaving his spinal cord severed and his body from the chest down paralyzed. Now, after an experimental treatment, Fitica has regained some feeling in his lower body and is learning to walk again. The researchers are looking to use less invasive techniques in the future, because undergoing brain surgery to extract the olfactory tissue isn't anyone's idea of a good time, much less someone who is paralyzed. Plants serve as the conduit of energy into the biosphere, provide food and materials used by humans, and they shape our environment. According to Earhart and Frommer, the three major challenges facing humanity in our time are food, energy, and environmental degradation. All three are plant-related. All of our food is produced by plants, either directly or indirectly via animals that eat them. Plants are a source of energy production. And they are intimately involved in climate change, and a major factor in a variety of environmental concerns, including agricultural expansion and its impact on habitat destruction and waterway pollution. What's more, none of these issues are independent of each other. Climate change places additional stresses on the food supply and on various habitats. So, plant research is instrumental in addressing all of these problems and moving into the future. For plant research to move significantly forward, Earhart and Frommer say technological development is critical, both to test existing hypotheses and to gain new information and generate fresh hypotheses. If we are to make headway in understanding how these essential organisms function and build the foundation for a sustainable future, then we need to apply the most advanced technologies available to the study of plant life, they say. Slightly less than 1 in 5 carers, 19%, were primary carers, 475,000 people. That is, they were the main carer of a person who was limited in carrying out the core everyday activities of mobility, communication, or self-care. Both primary carers and the larger group of other carers, close to 2 million, contribute to the well-being of older people and people with disabilities. However, because they care for people who otherwise would have difficulty carrying out basic, everyday activities, there is particular interest in primary carers, in the contribution they make, their well-being, labor force experiences, motivations, and the support they receive in caring. Primary carers were more likely than other carers to be assisting someone who lived in the same household, 81% compared with 76%. As with caring as a whole, the likelihood of being a primary carer increased with age to peak at age 55 to 64 years, where 1 in 20 people were primary carers. However, rather than then declining, the likelihood of being a primary carer remained at around this level among the older age groups. Consequently, primary carers had a somewhat older age profile than other carers. The median age of primary carers was 52 years, compared with 47 years for other carers. Primary carers were more likely than other carers to be female, 11% compared with 50%, and less likely to be in the labor force, 39% compared with 60%. Women not in the labor force were by far the largest single group among primary carers, 44%. In contrast, men employed full-time were the largest single group among other carers, 25%. Consistent with their lower labor force participation, primary carers had lower personal incomes than other carers, a median gross income $231 per week compared with $321 per week, and were more likely to have a government pension or allowance as their main source at income, 55% compared with 35%. The booksellers of Hookham and Carpenter, hereafter referred to only as Hookham, were located on New Bond Street in London, and their records span the most politically turbulent decade of the 18th century, the 1790s. Clients who frequented Hookham were primarily from the aristocratic or gentry classes. In fact, of Hookham's total buyers, 22% were aristocracy and 35%, 204 customers, of the aristocracy purchased novels. We can also confidently assume that untitled female customers were of gentry income, because their addresses were primarily in London's fashionable West End. Hookham's ledgers not only reveal a dramatic increase in the proportion of female purchasers of novels by comparison to earlier studies of provincial women, but they also reveal a remarkable increase in the proportion of female purchases of novels authored by females. Such a marked increase illustrates that Hookham's leisured female customers were able to buy more novels. Furthermore, the fact that these female aristocrats and gentry have accounts under their own name, not their husbands', demonstrates the greater degree of agency and independence that these urban, moneyed women had relative to provincial women. However, because our study does not include an examination of male customers, we are very limited in what claims we can make about whether or not these women behaved according to the cliché that women were the predominant consumers of novels in the 18th century. Moreover, while more disposable income and leisure time certainly accounts for the significant increase in female purchases of novels authored by women in the 1790s, this increase also strongly suggests a desire on the part of women readers to engage in this politically charged decade. Thus, novel reading provided women readers with the means through which they were able to participate in the male-dominated world of politics. The latter part of our paper will more fully explore this hypothesis in the context of certain recent literary scholars' claims that both Gothic and sentimental novels are actively engaged in political debate and discussion. The smallest star yet measured has been discovered by a team of astronomers led by the University of Cambridge. With a size just a sliver larger than that of Saturn, the gravitational pull at its stellar surface is about 300 times stronger than what humans feel on Earth. The star is likely as small as stars can possibly become, as it has just enough mass to enable the fusion of hydrogen nuclei into helium. If it were any smaller, the pressure at the center of the star would no longer be sufficient to enable this process to take place. Hydrogen fusion is also what powers the sun, and scientists are attempting to replicate it as a powerful energy source here on Earth. These very small and dim stars are also the best possible candidates for detecting Earth-sized planets which can have liquid water on their surfaces, such as TRAPPIST-1, an ultra-cool dwarf, surrounded by 7 temperate Earth-sized worlds. The newly measured star, called EBLM J0555-57up, is located about 600 light-years away. It is part of a binary system and was identified as it passed in front of its much larger companion, a method which is usually used to detect planets, not stars. Details will be published in the journal Astronomy Astrophysics. The oral storytelling skills of African American preschoolers make a difference in how quickly their reading skills develop, according to a new study from the Frank Porter Graham Child Development Institute, FPG, at the University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill. Researchers say the effect is much different for girls and boys. Knowing how to tell a clear and coherent story is an important skill for helping young children to develop strong reading skills, which, in turn, can help them to be successful across a number of different subjects in school, said FPG Advanced Research Scientist Nicole Gardner-Neblett. Prior research suggests that historical and cultural factors foster strong storytelling skills among African American children, which has implications for their development as readers. 2 years ago, Gardner-Neblett's own research was the first to demonstrate the connection between African American preschoolers' storytelling abilities and their early reading skills in kindergarten. That study found a link between storytelling and reading only for the African American children from households across income levels, but not for any other demographic group. Stark differences in reading achievement exist between Black and white elementary school children, as does a gender gap in reading outcomes, with girls outperforming boys, because of both disparities in achievement. Gardner-Neblett and FPG Advanced Research scientist John Sideris wanted to better understand if and how gender plays a role in the link between African American children's storytelling skills and reading development. The greatest climate change the world has seen in the last 100,000 years was the transition from the Ice Age to the warm interglacial period. New research from the Niels Bohr Institute at the University of Copenhagen indicates that, contrary to the previous opinion, the rise in temperature and the rise in the atmospheric CO2 follow each other closely in terms of time. The results have been published in the scientific journal, Climate of the Past. In the warmer climate, the atmospheric content of CO2 is naturally higher. The gas CO2, carbon dioxide, is a greenhouse gas that absorbs heat radiation from Earth and thus keeps Earth warm. In the shift between ice ages and interglacial periods, the atmospheric content of CO2 helps to intensify the natural climate variations. It had previously been thought that as the temperature began to rise at the end of the Ice Age, approximately 19,000 years ago, an increase in the amount of CO2 in the atmosphere followed, with a delay of up to 1,000 years. Our analysis of ice cores from the ice sheet in Antarctica shows that the concentration of CO2 in the atmosphere follows the rise in Antarctic temperatures very closely and is staggered by a few hundred years at most, explains Sune Lander Rasmussen, Associate Professor and Center Coordinator at the Center for Ice and Climate at the Niels Bohr Institute at the University of Copenhagen. Despite the growth of social media, the internet, and their central role in modern childhood, traditional bullying, such as name-calling or being excluded by others, remains considerably more common than cyberbullying, according to the largest study of its kind, published in the Lancet Child and Adolescent Health Journal. The study estimates that less than 1% of 15-year-olds in England report only being bullied online regularly, while more than 1 in 4, 27%, experience only face-to-face bullying methods, with 9 out of 10 of the teenagers who are bullied online also facing regular traditional bullying. The researchers suggest that cyberbullying is an additional tactic in the bullies' arsenal, and that both forms must be tackled together to prevent bullying and improve teenagers' resilience. Concerns have been raised that cyberbullying has the potential to cause more harm than traditional bullying due to the relative anonymity of perpetrators in many cases, larger audiences, increasing prevalence, and permanence of posted messages. However, in the study, the experience of only cyberbullying was found to have a very small association with well-being and life satisfaction when compared with traditional bullying alone. Delivering packages with drones can reduce carbon dioxide emissions in certain circumstances, as compared to truck deliveries, a new study from University of Washington Transportation Engineers finds. In a paper to be published in an upcoming issue of Transportation Research Part D, researchers found that drones tend to have carbon dioxide emissions advantages over trucks when the drones don't have to fly very far to their destinations or when a delivery route has few recipients, trucks, which can offer environmental benefits by carrying everything from clothes to appliances to furniture in a single trip, become a more climate-friendly alternative when a delivery route has many stops or is farther away from a central warehouse. For small, light packages, a bottle of medicine or a kid's bathing suit, drones compete especially well. But the carbon benefits erode as the weight of a package increases since these unmanned aerial vehicles have to use additional energy to stay aloft with a heavy load.